Well, hello, this is Peter Combs from Bidamount.com and B.O. Combs Asian Art in Gloucester, Massachusetts. And today is July 5th, 2019, and this is our weekly video. Take a look back at last week's eBay and some Catawiki auction results, see how they did. These are items that were in the weekly newsletter of things that we picked out before they sold for our subscribers to use, as many of you know. We have viewers that don't know all this, so I'm just explaining it. All right, and we're going to take a look ahead and see what's coming up next week. There's some interesting stuff out there, and there were some interesting price results this week, and a couple of real bargains that I'll get into in just a minute. All right, so let's hop over here. One of the things that was on Catawiki last week was this cup. This was a very, very pretty Kangxi period scrolling vine and floral step foot cup. A nice one. The form is not especially rare. They turn up in Europe and Northern Europe, the Netherlands. A lot of them are imported there, sets of them, and they came in a wide range of sizes. These can be 6 or 8 inches tall. They can even be 15 inches tall, some of them. They go in all sizes. But anyway, this was a very pretty type. I've always liked them. And it went just fine. It brought $407, which was, I think, a pretty reasonable buy. It wasn't a crazy price at all for an unusual and interesting thing. If you're a Kangxi buyer, you should really be checking out Catawiki fairly often, I think. All right, and then over here you had this seller had this up as Yongchen. I don't think it is. I think it's pretty clearly Kangxi. May have a debate about it with someone, but at any rate, I loved the rim on it. I loved the loose rim of just sort of flowers pouring over the edge, and then you have the man sitting at his scholar's table with his brush and a lady outside, and they're chatting, and this sort of again, these idealized Chinese scenes. Very nicely done. And the plate did pretty well. It brought $546, but I think a lot of that was owed, one, to the condition. The colors were good, and the rim was quite unusual. Nice looking plate. This was Godfrog, Dr. Godfrog over in the UK had this. He gets good things. He's a good dealer. And then over to this sort of late Republican, possibly 50s, but looks to be Republican vase. Beautiful quality, though. Always look at the quality. And if you took the time to examine this and you saw the details of the face, the way the eyes are done, the way the robes are done, and the figures around him. Here's another one here holding the Triton and this rounded belly and all this armor on him, the soldier. And nice calligraphy, good, tight, neat calligraphy. That's really good calligraphy. And here's another shot of it. And then this very nicely done foot rim with a 4-character enameled overglaze Qinlong mark. Pretty typical on these latter Republican pieces, and even into the 50s. The paste on this and the porcelain was really good. And I think this was a good buy. $2,550, but a nice piece of Chinese porcelain. Truly was. Good looking thing. And this was Ding Gu. He's a seller in New Jersey. And I don't know where he gets his things, but he comes on periodically. We don't see him for 4 or 5 months, and he comes back, and he's got a bunch of interesting things. All right, and then over to this. This was, I think, a really good buy. This was a very attractive double gourd 19th century vase, sort of done in the transitional style. Had a Kangxi mark on the bottom, a 4-character Kangxi mark on the bottom. But the foot and everything else gives it away, obviously, as a 19th century piece. Nice looking painting, very three-dimensional, the way the balustrade creeps across and disappears. Endless knots connecting the upper and lower sections. A lot going on it. And the reason I think this was a good buy is that most of these vases typically are 6 to 8 inches tall, maybe 9 inches tall. This was a big one. This was 14 inches tall, and it went for $610. Which I think is pretty reasonable for a vase that size. And this type with this quality of decoration. This had really very good decoration on it, and I think someone got a good buy on that. And then over to this, the Kangxi jar. Big piece of Kangxi, 14 inches tall, nicely decorated. The pattern is a pattern that you've seen on plates and charges most often. You see them on jars too, but you also see them on a lot of plates and bigger bowl, shallow bowls, 14, 15, 16 inches in diameter at times. This vase was 14 inches tall. Didn't have its lid, unfortunately, but that's not uncommon with these. As you know, the lids often get just lost. But good-looking Kangxi foot on it, nicely done. And the seller took the time to run around it and put little arrows next to all these little nicks and frits under the edge of the glaze. Those, I suspect, came from the casting. Those aren't from, being abused. But at any rate, he pointed them out, and the vase still did fine. It brought $1,558, which was a nice price for that. Good-looking pot, but not a crazy price at all. And then over to this, the Famille Rose ormolu mounted vase, 19th century vase, but really pretty. This was a seller in France, as I recall. Really, really, really pretty vase. Beautiful colors, very tasteful, elegant form, and it has sort of a tiger mask. Instead of lion mask, it looks like a tiger on the end. All right. And here's the inside of it. It was drilled. It was a lamp at one point, but I don't care. This was a nice package. And this was a good-sized vase. This vase was 16 inches tall. All right. And it ended up bringing $1,126, which I don't think is a bad price. I think it's pretty good. Shipping was a little heavy, but because it's a big piece coming from Angers in France. And then on to this. The pair of these sort of dowager pattern hat stands. These are really nice. This was an elegant pair of hat stands. And this gray tone drawing ground was a style of work that became popular during the last emperor's period. They were influenced by designs, as they say, by the Empress Dowager. Last week we had a yellow bowl on here that had similar design on it. It was more of the typical one, but that style influenced other bits of porcelain during this period. And what I really liked about this pair of vases was the iron red dragons are great looking, but the black dragon with the iron red highlights I thought was fabulous. And I love the very, very robust, oversized claws, and the way the red and the black, this iron red, work together with the black. Beautifully done, nice looking pot. Here's the bottom of it. Typical 19th century foot, late 19th century, even early 20th at times, but they look late 19th to me. And a lot of people like these. They ended up selling for just a little under $3,000. They went for $2,989. But lovely pair with dragons, good color, and striking color combinations. As I said, that's a really good color combination. Very, very deep, a lot of contrast. And those were nice. This was from a friend of ours up in Canada who gets good things. And then over to this Kangxi iron red bowl, two figures sitting outside. Looks like next to a rock table. They have a vase. They're playing Go. They have little bowls of something here that they're snacking on. A nice looking bowl. And it had a shaped rim. If you looked at it quickly, it looked like it was all chipped out. It really wasn't. It's just shaped rim. And here's the exterior. And you see this same pattern on the cavettos and the rims of plates from this period. But this was a bowl. It was a nice one. Here's a picture of the bottom. Nicely done. Nice creamy ivory colored foot. And it brought $660, which I think was fine. Nice looking thing. And then mosey over to here. There were a number of good bronzes on this week. This was one of them, a nice high-footed, four-footed bronze with this cross-hatching and these nice big lug handles on the ends. Here they are. There was no cover for this, though it was a burner. And they generally have wooden covers if you come across them. They rarely see them with bronze covers. And but good quality. And it did pretty well. It brought $1,075 or 856 pounds, depending on which prices you follow. All right, and then this same seller, his name is White Crow, had this. This is a nice Ming figure carrying a vase. It could be used as a joss stick holder. Here's a detail of it. But notice the patina. This had a really good color. Had very, very nice patina. Undisturbed. Good facial expression, nice detail. He's holding an incense burner. It's not actually a vase, it's an incense burner. And here's another detail of it to get the color. Always look at the color on these old bronzes. Incense burners can get away with being polished, as we're going to see in a minute. But these old standing figures, the better the color, the more valuable they are to collectors. This had good color. And it brought $1,206, which I think was a perfectly reasonable buy. This was a nice looking thing. And then over here, this was a quirky thing I put in. It's either Indian or Thai coconut, carved coconut. and they decorated the ground, the low relief work in red to make it maybe use sort of a henna to bring up the contrasts. And this was a beautifully carved one. It was 19th century. It had a later stand probably added to it in Europe, I suspect, by the looks of it. But so what? This was a great thing. And if you like interesting carvings, you want to track these coconuts. It went for $159, which I thought was very reasonable. But later in the video, coming up this week, there's a better one. And this, not that this wasn't a good one. There's a better one coming up for I think is really wonderful. All right, we'll take a look at that. All right, and then over here was that scholar's fan painting that we talked about last week, in ink and some colors, and it shows two scholars outside. Often in old Chinese paintings, you'll see artists and people outside doing scholarly pursuits, admiring art and objects outdoors in nature. And here you have somebody holding up the scroll, and over here you have more scrolls they're going to look at, and so forth. All right, and some of these can be quite involved. I in my own collection, I have a Ming painting of a scholar sitting outside, and they actually moved a daybed outside with marble inserts, and he's sitting on it, and his attendants are made a fire, and outside they're bringing out bronzes and things for him to sit and look at and enjoy and appreciate and spend the afternoon. So there are people that collect these rather scholarly things, and it's how they like to be depicted. And this painting did just fine. It brought $1,651, and I think it was a great buy. I love that picture. All right, and then over here, our friend Freak over in the Netherlands had this up. This was a nice rose medallion vase, pre-1850. Good, looking Canton enamels on it. And it was big, 17 inches tall. All right, had a tiny nick on the rim, as I recall from the pictures, but still, it went reasonably. $1,405 for a 17-inch vase. Not bad at all. Okay, the shipping to the U.S. and over there is a little high. It was $100, but that's not his fault. That's what the shipping is. Shipping is expensive these days. Shipping's gone up a lot in the last couple of years. Too bad. But at any rate, and then you have this a very Chinese taste, but export plate. The Chinese collectors will buy export plates if they are done in the Chinese taste. And this is very much in the Chinese taste, very much in the Yongchen style, though I think it's a Qinlong plate. Nice enamels, people outside, ladies with children playing musical instruments. Here you are outdoors. They have a table out there. There's a vase on the end with citron Buddha fingers sticking out of it. And these big jars on the end. This one sort of looks like a Ming jar with a giant dragon or something on it, and this yellow jar. And there's something in that because there's a scoop, probably water. But a nice looking example. Very good detail. Very nicely done all the way around. And it did pretty well. It ended up bringing, $585. And this was only about an 8-inch bowl. But very Chinese in its feeling, and nice colors and in good condition. And everything was floating on it, which I like. All right, nothing was inside of frames or outlined. It was just all sort of floating images. And this was a superb ivory card case. And even if you live in the U.S. and you weren't feeling comfortable trying to buy it and getting it shipped here, this is sort of like the top of the heap when it comes to ivory card cases. Notice in particular the amazing detail of the banister, the balustrade. Is there a better picture of it? No, there isn't. You should have. At any rate, and all the figures coming down out of the house. There's a man up here looking out. There are some people above in the pine trees and sitting here, and there's another carved balustrade, but very, very, very three-dimensional. From the weeping willows sort of out front and then fading back to the figures and then into the background of the structure. This was an extremely good case, probably done about 1815 to 1825. Great case, and I think it was a good buy. You're not supposed to sell ivory on eBay, but everybody does, especially in Europe. And he didn't describe it as ivory. He just said deep carved Chinese oversized card case. Sort of an awkward title. Had he put a better title on, I think it probably would have brought a lot more than that. We saw one a few months ago that was similar. I think it brought $800 or $700. Anyway, this went for $389, which I think was a fantastic buy, because this is a card case is about as good as they get. All right, and then over to here, the Chinese silver box. It's a very attractive box. Late 19th, early 20th century, but very fine quality, lots of detail, figures, figural top with landscape scenes and buildings. Really quite nice. It was not marked, and nonetheless, it still brought $760. But a very attractive piece of silverwork. And over to this. You remember a month ago we had one of these enamel, or 2 or 3 weeks ago, one of these monochrome enamels, or monochromes that were enameled. Traditionally, buyers in China shunned these. They didn't really like them. They liked them just this Hu-form vase with just one color. That was it: white, red, flambe, lang yao, or blue, occasionally lime green. And a few of these enameled pieces have started to turn up, and they're actually starting to sell for a little bit of money. The one a couple of weeks ago brought more, but this one did fine. It brought $986. All right, and it wasn't that long ago that you sort of had to work to get 100 for one of these. 20 years ago, these weren't that popular. All right, and then over to this, the Wanli bottle form vase. Good-looking vase, very classic. It's very, very typical of these Wanli vases. This one had been drilled, but the seller, if you want to learn about these things, the seller, in this case, always check the footrooms. Seller did a good job showing the foot, what it looks like, that sort of oatmeal texturized surface, and you can see where a little bit of the glaze peeled back underneath and so forth, and some defects on the bottom. That's caused from the firing as the piece is getting heated. But here's a picture of the mouth. The mouth has not been ground down. Often these vases are cut because they kind of look as though they're cut back then. This looks like visually like it should have maybe been a little higher, you think. No, it wasn't. That was the height. And but they often are cut down and then ground. This one did fine. It brought $1,525. And that's the price range they sell in, plus or minus a couple of hundred here and there, depending on the quality of the decoration. But a nice-looking piece of porcelain. And then over to this, the blue ground with gilt Famille Rose planter with under tray. These were generally made in pairs. But what's interesting about this is how good the condition of the gilt is. I've seen a lot of these cobalt ground pieces. They were made in the 19th century. And because they had plants on them, they were and these often were in estates, nice houses. They had servants. And they would clean these when they changed the plants and they moved them around. They would wash them. They often wash them with ammonia, which will kill gilding on porcelain very quickly. The gilding on these have been carefully protected and was in very good shape. And as a result, this single did pretty well. It brought $772. Had it been a pair, it probably would have brought 3 times that, but they didn't have a pair, obviously. Okay. If you ever get a pair of these, don't break them up. Sell them together. All right. You'll regret it. Okay, and now on to this. The bronze late Ming incense burner, early Qing, late Ming, somewhere in there. Getting exact dates on these is I think, too more effort than they're really worth, because you're looking at the object, how well is it done. And this one was nicely done. The proportions of the foot to the base were good. Proportions relative to the upper section of the handles was good. The piece is balanced, has a nice wasted side to it. The bottom has, of course, a Ming mark, which is apocryphal because it's much earlier Ming mark. Here's the inside of it. It's obviously been used. And it did pretty well. It brought $2,930. And this bronze had been polished in the 20th century, which was not unusual. A lot of people polish them, as I've said before, because they want them to look like gold. That was sort of the idea. It was like many years ago, American pewter. People used to polish this dingy dark pewter that people collect, the American collectors. They would, in the old days, they would polish. They'd have a rack of pewter in their house, a big wall rack of it, and they would polish them religiously to keep them as shiny as silver, because that's what pewter was intended to do. It was to emulate silver, and it also reflected light in a room with a few candles that helped illuminate rooms. But that's another story. All right, anyway, they did used to polish the bronzes. And on to this. This, I think, was the bargain of the week. If you're a scholar's object collector, and you didn't take a little time to look at this. Unfortunately, we know Tony over in France. The pictures on this were not terribly good. You should have taken it outside and shot it. This was a very rare fungus brush pot. Beautifully done. And if you're saying I haven't seen one of these, that's because they don't turn up very often. This is a really nice piece of scholar's work. I think it was probably, the more I've looked at it quite a bit this week, I think it was probably an 18th century one, judging by the color, the shape, the patina, the surface, that deep, 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 deep color. This really deep patina on here. It's been oiled over the years. Here's another one of the layer of the fungus. And I think this was a stupendous buy for someone who likes scholars' objects in particular. And it went for just $720. Okay, I wouldn't have been surprised to see this bring over $3,000 at all. All right, fungus brush pots are very rare. Anyway, whoever got it, good. And I feel kind of bad for Tony, but he sells a lot of stuff. He'll be okay. He'll be just fine. But that was a great thing. And then let's move over and see what's coming up this coming week. There's some good things, and this is one of them. This is one of it's one of these. In 1915 to 1925, there were a number of companies in the U.S. and the U.K. In the U.S. in particular, you had the Yamanaka Company and Farmer, and these were high-end stores. Yamanaka, a legendary dealer of Asian and Japanese art that was shut down following Pearl Harbor by the federal government. Liquidated, but that's another story. But they had great things, but they also took bits and things that were around and repurposed them. And often the Farmer and Yamanaka would repurpose things for desk sets. And this is what this is. This is a nice piece of 19th century, probably early 19th century porcelain. And somebody built a base for it. And they used this very nice piece of green jade on the top to make a handle. This is an inkwell. It was retrofitted as an inkwell. There it is open, okay? It probably has a glass insert or something in there, but very nice. Here's the bottom of it where they put the bolt through, so forth. And I think the porcelain, the mouth of the porcelain looked like it's been, it went extended a bit further, you can see, and then they cut it off and ground it, which was not unusual. It does have a crackle interior, though, which is kind of nice. This is a good item, though, nonetheless. It's up to $35. It's got 3 bids. I threw a bid on it of $20 just to get it started because I wanted to be able to track it. It's such a good-looking thing. I probably won't bid on it again. I already actually have one of these, but it's a nice thing, and we'll see how that does. Then over to this is this. This is Coast to Coast. Here is a dealer up in New Hampshire. He hits every auction in New England, it seems. And this was a very nice stipple ground box. He says it's Chinese. It could be Chinese. It could also be Indian. But beautiful quality. Beautiful quality. Here's a picture of the bottom of it. Nice looking thing, but interesting design. Very, very, almost 30s chic looking. And it's up to $93. It closes on Saturday. It closes tomorrow. That will be in this week's newsletter. All these things will be. And then this, the Kangxi Famille Vase plate, rather. One of the things that's interesting about this plate is it has a 3-toed frog in it. And 3-toed frogs are typically seen in Japanese culture more than in Chinese. And there's a myth, the legend of the 3-toed frog, 3-legged frog rather, not 3-toed, 3-legged, is that they emitted a smoke, and if you were an evil person or an evil spirit, the smoke would ward you off and could even kill you in some stories. And if you're a good person, a kind person, it filled you with joy and happiness and peace and that sort of thing. It's a good story. It was curious to see it on a plate. And then, of course, you have all these extra pieces, the vases, some scrolls. There's a table here that's sticking out that has little precious objects on it, and then this nice rim. And this is up to $113. It closes on Monday, but it's a nice, interesting example of Kangxi porcelain. And then over here, this is, I think, maybe one of the coolest things of the week. This it looks to be a piece of the Quanjianware, which is 19th to early 20th century. But curiously, this is a big vase. This is a 17-inch vase. This is not a little 9-inch vase. Here's the decoration. I love it. It's the color is almost like Dasai, but it's not. But really well done. And here's a bird, the way you see on these Quanjian pieces. Here it is. Here's the bottom of it. All right, nice looking foot, 19th century foot, double ring, sort of sloppily thrown on there. But crackle glazed, and I can't think of the last time I saw one of these with a crackle glaze. And in this size, it's a monster. But I think it's very, very elegant, very pretty. It's up to $355. It has 8 days to go. And if you collect this genre of porcelain, this is a very nice example. Really is, really is. Take a moment to look at it. And then over on Catawiki, they have one of these, an eight immortal Kangxi rim dish with pairings of ducks and birds in the center. Beautifully done. I love the small scale of the center of this. Very delicate, very elegant. And then the figures floating around the rim. This pattern is very well known, very collected, and we'll see how it does. It's up to $1,262 now, and it closes in a couple days, all right? But that's not crazy for one of these. And then there's this, the Kangxi pear-shaped bottle vase. Now this vase, when I first saw it, I thought, boy, that's a big one. It's got to be 15 inches tall. And then I looked at it carefully, and I realized that little vase, and there's only probably 1.5 inches tall, 2 inches tall. This vase overall is about 9 inches tall, but outstanding quality. This is very nice quality. And the guy provided some good photographs of it. There's a tiny nick on the rim right at the top. And but that's about it. All right, here it is. All right, usually the necks on those are long broken off. But there's the foot rim on it. Nice looking Kangxi foot rim. Thin, well carved, glaze ends neatly and all that good stuff. Nice looking paste on it. Here's another side of it. Good sharp lip right there. Very white. And right now this is up to $909. It also closes in a couple days on Catawiki. If you don't have a Catawiki account, go over and get one. And then on the ivory cases, there were a slew of them, as you know, on eBay last week. Here's another one, but this one is kind of interesting. If you're a collector and you're in the UK, you're not running a risk of trying to get through customs with one of these. This is a great thing because it has a letter of provenance with it that's dated to 1825. And these cases rarely have any history with them. We used to see them in here and around New England, and occasionally in the case you'd have the name of the sea captain on a piece of scrap paper or something that went out of Salem. But this has a letter explaining who it came from, where it came from, and all that other business. So you want to check that out. It is up to just $174. You know, I think the letter's worth $200. That's a good item. And then here's the other coconut. This is a Chinese coconut, and it was made and sent to probably England. I love the ball and claw feet on it. Those are English, and they added this copper handle. But this was retrofitted from a coconut to be made into a calling card receptor. All right, here's the side of it, the Chinese figures and all that. Here it is. But I love the top. Where's the top of this thing? Hold on, I got to find it. There. Not at home. So when you went out in your vestibule, you could leave this this container, and if you came calling and you weren't there, you just open it, you put your calling card in it, because everybody had calling cards. You put your calling card in it, put the lid back on it, and leave. And that way the homeowner would know that you had called on them to visit in their absence. A great item. This is so 19th century. It's just terrific. There it is. Nice old coconut, though. And this is a buy it now. This is not an auction item. So if you like this, I don't think what he's asking for one is a crazy price. $370. It's an interesting object because it's bicultural, and he has a make an offer thing on there, and he's an active seller. We follow him, and you know, make an offer. This is a nice thing. All right, there's a couple of buy it nows here. This is also a buy it now, and I was kind of surprised because the buy it now price on this and the next bronze, they're both buy it nows, I think are less than what they'd get in an auction, to be honest. I don't know why they do it. Some people don't like auctions, though. They get nervous around them. And somebody had made this stand and used this sort of cool green matrix stone to fit the base onto on this figure. This is an interesting bit of bronze. And you can see the side over here where the base had been on something, and they fitted a stone to it. I love that. And it's a pricket stick holder. It was originally a pair. He's asking $1,067 for it, but it's make an offer. And if you could buy it for $850 or $900, that's a heck of a nice buy, because I think at auction it would actually probably bring a bit more. I think it would probably bring $1,200 to $1,400. And ditto for this. This is one of these late Yuan, early Ming dragon head loop-handled vases. They also did them very similarly in the Ming dynasty, but they were slightly different in the relief work on the ground, and the way they did this relief work here on the neck, and the shape of the mouth and things were done a bit differently. But this is a nice one. He evidently bought it at Bonham's because he's included the Bonham catalog, and if that's not the same one, it's extremely similar. It has an 800 to 1,200 pound estimate on it, all right, which sounds about right. And he's asking $900 or 750 pounds, so it's a reasonable purchase, but I think you could maybe make an offer on it. All right, that's it. If you haven't subscribed to us yet here on YouTube, please do. Please leave a comment. We do try to answer them, and we've had some nice conversations with people. And if you don't get the bid amount newsletter and you don't see the eBay Today page, which we've changed, if you haven't seen it lately, we changed the eBay Today page to make it more vertical, larger images, easier to look at on a phone. I looked at the old page on my own phone and I couldn't see enough, so I said we got to fix that. All right. Have a wonderful weekend, sort of a long weekend around here too, and we'll see you all next week. And thanks so much, and good luck out there hunting around, and hope find something that you love and bring it home. And peace to everybody. Have a great summer weekend. All right. Bye-bye.